How do we build in an ethical way by making conscious choices? There are five major points how I put it together. The first is being contextual to the climate. Sourcing from the site is the second important point. The next point is creating it traditionally. We have so many cues here in India, everything from sheltered courtyards or screens, passive cooling, and if these are used effectively in the architecture that we're doing today rather than making curtain glassed walls, this goes a long way in making the buildings energy efficient and reducing the heat gain and thereby making them more sustainable. Thank you very much, Pramati. Nice to be here amongst all of you. So I'll quickly start since we're already late. How do we build in an ethical way by making conscious choices? There are five major points how I put it together. The first is being contextual to the climate. So these are some projects. All three of these are in Rajasthan. This one is in Nokha, which is like literally surrounded by the desert. That is in Biawar, and the last one is a school also in Biawar. Each of these places don't need air conditioning throughout the year, and all have summers of 40 degrees plus, sometimes going up to 50. Sourcing from the site is the second important point, where in these cases, this is a house we are now constructing in Gujarat, in Gandhinagar, where the earth excavated from the foundation is being used to make stabilized earth blocks. There is almost zero concrete. Even the roofs are being done with a new material that we're testing, which is foam concrete. It's made 80% out of recycled material, uses almost no water and almost no energy to make. The second one is a community center which is under construction, also with earth stabilized blocks and a bamboo roof. And the last one was a building completely in stone, which we will go into detail later on. The next point is creating it traditionally. We have so many cues here in India, everything from sheltered courtyards, screens, passive cooling, and if these are used effectively in the architecture that we're doing today rather than making curtain glassed walls, this goes a long way in making the buildings energy efficient and reducing the heat gain and thereby making them more sustainable. And then there is leaning into landscape, which is really important, preserving the landscape and increasing the amount of landscape space that is possible. So here, this is a house that we did in Jaipur. There were over 60 trees on the side, and the house has literally been planned within those trees. So the client, in fact, told us that my house is not visible from anywhere. I said, that's the beauty. So except from the main road side where you can see a little bit, once you go inside you can see on the image on the top, the trees are so closely spaced that you can't see the house. But what it does is, it shelters the house and creates this really beautiful environment. And every room you step out from, has these trees and plants which were there for a long time. And you can't imagine that this is in the middle of Jaipur city. You come through this mad traffic and you get into a house that looks out into greenery like this. That is the Prestige University, which I'll be explaining later, where we've created a 80,000 square feet terrace garden. And the last is the community center again, which has a spiral roof garden above it. And all of these also help to reduce the heat gain tremendously. And the last point is harnessing and harvesting and how we can do that. So here in the courtyard CCR lab, this building is designed with louvers that are directed towards the north, and all the energy comes from the plant outside, so there is no external source of electrical energy required in this building. Passive cooling generated by creating a very interesting courtyard, and unlike most courtyards which are large rectangular spaces where only a slight amount is in shadow, this one, if you look at the top it actually twists inside so that at any time of the day, 50% of the courtyard is in shadow and usable, and I've seen people sitting and eating their lunch there. That's the Arya Hotel, which is constructed 50% out of the local basalt sandstone available on the site. 50% of its areas are non-air conditioned, and 55% of the energy used in the air conditioned spaces comes from solar energy. So it actually runs at 25% of the energy used for a normal hotel. And the last is the community center, where in the middle of that desert landscape, we've created a completely self-sufficient building in terms of water supply, which is like a Herculean task to do. So now I'll describe a few projects, very quickly taking you through the Ras houses, which is part of a 100-acre township in Ras in Rajasthan. We've taken one primary circulatory road on the perimeter, so 95 acres out of the 100 acres it's pedestrian with no vehicular traffic at all. And the site had these contours which are high at the back and low in the front. And we created a public zone in the front side and the main residential zone at the back. So that's the Google image, and that's the entire site plan. And our whole cue came from the organic cities in India, where you don't have roads that run straight, and there are interesting points at every focal, there's so many focal places. So you walk to an extent, it opens up, and this was translated into this building. And when the client saw the design, they said, we're only going to pay you for one unit. So why are we going to complicate the design so much? We're not going to pay you anything extra for all this work. So we said it doesn't matter. We will still do it. And we had to make 160 sections for this building. So it's all situated on the existing contours as it goes down and keep stepping down. So you actually enter at one level and then the building gradually steps down and then further steps down, and that's the final site plan, where there is a mix of studio apartments, one bedroom apartments, as well as a guest house and a bachelor's hostel. So every floor plan differs, and within that every unit also differs as one moves up 3 levels. So these are the plans that constantly change. And this is the way every unit is articulated. So you get deep recessed balcony spaces, covered terraces, and those are the sections through the entire site which show how it's been done based on where the site stepped more or stepped less accordingly. So at every point you look at this building from anywhere, the view is completely different whether you're on the inside or on the outside. These are all the natural contours that existed, so we've simply covered them with grass. You get all these very interesting spaces when you walk through, interesting compositions. And that's the main road. This is the main block which houses the public facilities for all these studios. So the circulation is also kept completely open. So here you have all these windows which look out in each direction, and the colors within were derived from the traditional colors in Rajasthan. So every corridor gets a different color, and when it turns, it again changes color. So you're constantly aware of where you are, at which point of the building, at which level. So all of this was built in fly ash bricks, and all the spaces are naturally ventilated. And the entire energy, of course now, cement in itself is not a great thing to talk about, but this township was made for the cement factory. So the entire energy for the 100-acre township is coming from the residual energy of the plant. So at least in that way it is completely sustainable. And then there were 2 points where there was water existing on this site, and in Rajasthan it's really rare to get water, so we deepened that, and that's become a natural reservoir for the entire township. So it's self-sufficient in terms of water. We did not cut the contours, so not in a 100-acre site, not one bucket of mud went out or came into this site. This is a house that we completed early this year in January, which is located in Nokha, Bikaner area in Rajasthan. And the entire building is designed with a series of courtyards, one leading to the other, a lot of sheltered spaces. That's the floor plan in the center, where you walk through with water troughs on either side to create passive cooling. You enter and each room is opening into a large sheltered outdoor space, so they are all usable throughout the year. And then in the house is a central large courtyard space. And the heights vary as one moves through the house, so you have like 4 different heights within the same house, so the volumes constantly change depending upon the size of the room. So that's the building from the outside. This is all natural sandstone sourced from a 5-kilometer radius of the site. And all the stone jalis are also made there. All the labor was local from the villagers, from the surrounding villages. And these villagers who had not built a building before were trained to make this by the contracting firm's engineer. So during COVID, all of this was done. I stayed in this house in May when it was 44 degrees outside, and there was no need of an air conditioner or even a fan in any of the rooms. So that's what taking cues from traditional architects can actually do. Instead of just trying to find new ways and new ways, if you imbibe from the past, there is so much to learn. So that's the main courtyard of the house, which is 3.5 floors high, and it's naturally ventilated from the top. So even here, you walk in at any time of the day and it's never hot. That's the building by the night, and a very short video which will take you through the spaces. Can you have volume? Thank you. So from that very large house, of course it was large because that was the client's requirement. I'll take you to a tiny house. I mean tiny is of course, sorry, a relative term, so it's not that tiny. So this is in Bhilwara, also in Rajasthan. And that's the site. So the site is a corner plot in a very large area with over 200 different villas of small sizes. From all these plots range from 250 to 500 square meters, and this plot was 450 square meters. So here again we made everything from Vedic bricks, and all the contract labor was local. All the walls are done in lime plaster, exterior and interior. And this is a local tradition which has originated from the region, technically in Jodhpur. And it helps in really reducing the heat gain, just simple lime plaster on the walls. So that's the proportion of the house based on what the client needed. And the section with respect to the site, as you can see, is like pretty dense. On a small site, you almost covered more than 50% of the plot. And the heat gain is tremendous in this area. So we look back at cues of how these old Havelis and Mahals still have beautiful cool spaces when you're walking at any time, even in the afternoon. These are all sheltered, and just simply because of the deep recessed spaces, the heat gain is not there in any of the spaces. So we've taken an envelope around the entire house and bent this, articulated it, created a complete sheltered space all throughout, which acts as an intermediate space between the inside and the outside. It serves to cool the inner spaces by a very large degree. And that's from the road junction. So again, this is a house where air conditioning is not required for most of the year. And within this floor plate, there are 3 different volumes. So even though the house is relatively small, the distance of the house in one direction is only 40 feet, but even in that, you keep crossing different heights when you're walking through. So that's the relative section. So the living room is 1.5 floors high, the dining space is 2 floors high, and then the bedrooms are a single level. And this interesting juxtaposition keeps happening when you're walking within the house. And at every point there is a nice, interesting focal point created out of limited landscape space that is available on this side. So you have this nice envelope of sheltered spaces running throughout the house at every level. The windows are so deep that you almost don't see them from the outside. And that's what helps in creating these private zone spaces for each part of the house. Now this one is a university that we have just completed, and it will be documented next month. So this is an indoor city, and most of the time you have a plot with a road on one side, 2 sides, 3 sides, or maybe if you're lucky all 4 sides. In this case we had a very small access point. Does it help by pointing this in some direction? Okay. Oops. Okay, sorry. So we'll take it from this slide onwards, where that's the approach. So it's just an approach at one point, so northeast corner of the site. So when you come in based on the client's requirements, the area required overall was was 400,000 square feet. And if you were to do a floor plate, leaving 60% of it in landscape spaces, this is what you would have got, a ground plus 6-storied building, which is too high for an institutional building where there are thousands of people walking up and down after every class. So we decided that let's increase the footprint, reduce the height so that you don't have to depend upon elevators and you can easily access every floor through staircases, but then that reduces the landscape space. And plus it makes a floor plate that is too large to get natural light from everywhere. So then we decided, okay, let's punctuate this and make a courtyard space because you have light penetration only for 8 meters. But by doing that, the landscape space still further reduces. And then we looked at, rather than doing one large courtyard, what if you make a series of courtyards so that every single courtyard creates some different kind of element and different kind of experience as one is moving through the building, and it's not like this static courtyard that looks the same from every single direction. And then we had to make a pathway to connect to the building at the rear. So this is done in this diagonal way. Sorry, these slides are going. So because the footprint kept increasing as we kept designing to make it low-rise, and the garden kept shrinking from 60% to 20%, we finally stepped the building down on the northeast side and it diagonally moves upwards. And this is okay. So this is how it is. So the landscape kept reducing as we kept increasing the footprint. And so we took the northeast point down and took that up. So diagonally the building steps down, and in this way the landscape literally goes over the entire building. So eventually this campus is going to house 4,000 to 5,000 students. And the idea was that this open terrace space becomes a gathering space for all those 4,000 to 5,000 people, stepping down towards the northeast corner, and is completely accessible. And then we've used screen walls on all the other sides so that the direct heat gain is reduced. And for this, we did 2 programs, which is the SDA, the Spatial Daylight Autonomy, to see whether every portion of the building in this large footprint of 80,000 square feet gets enough natural light throughout the year. And based on that, these courtyards have been increased or decreased. So this is the program. So the building keeps stepping back, and the other important factor in this is that we had to make a very flexible grid, because this building will finally be only the administrative building with the library and the large auditorium, and the classroom would all move to the building which is going to be constructed later on behind. But for the moment, all of these classrooms are within this building. So that grid is flexible in such a way that today it is already being used by the students with classrooms of all sizes. And based on what we did up till now, stepping the building, taking it down, as you cut sections, the space perception constantly changes. The built to the open to the sheltered constantly changes, and if you look at it, it's almost like a graphic pattern moving through the building. So at every point, there's a completely different experience within this building. So that's the ground floor plan with a large cafeteria and auditorium and admin areas behind. And then the building steps back to create all these classrooms of different sizes. And then still further classrooms on the top, and finally the admin office right on the topmost floor. And the whole building is a terrace garden. Very interesting cross sections. Wherever we take a section from in this building is completely different. And the way the natural light penetrates is also going to be completely different. So it's all indirect lighting throughout the building. So that's the building as it was perceived prior to construction, with these courtyards interspersed in all the spaces. And that's the organic corridor that walks through this building and leads to the next one behind, which will be constructed later. This is the cafeteria. This is again one of the courtyards between rooms. So that was the 3D model, and the lower two images are the real building, which is now being complete. So currently the landscape of the roof is ongoing. So these are some of the courtyards. It's still to get finished, so it'll be done within a month. And this is now the Arya Hotel, which is built in Nasik. This site had a 16-meter difference from the bottom to the top and overlooks a beautiful dam. So it's the Gangapur Dam. So you wanted to maximize the views towards the garden and at the same time have no cutting or filling within the site. So the building steps up with the contours, creating the banquet level at the lower portion, then stepping back into the restaurant and lobby, and then further stepping back into the rooms. All the rooms are entered through naturally lit courtyards and naturally ventilated courtyards. So there's no air conditioning in any of those circulation spaces. So that's how it was done, with 4 blocks of rooms and distinct balconies to each. So that's a complete section that gives you the kind of idea of the spaces and how they step back along the contours, with each room looking out either at the river on the front or on the hills at the back. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all of these yellow spaces are solar panels, which give 50% of the energy requirement for the building. So that's the floor plan, the banquet hall, stepping back into the restaurant, stepping back to the rooms, and the natural courtyards that light it with the solar panels on the top. Some detail of the cross sections and the rooms. So all of this is designed to facilitate natural cooling and ventilation. This is all local stone, basalt stone available in the region. 50% of the walls are made of this. And that's the pool deck and the rooms that twist with large 8-feet balconies looking out towards the views on either side. Just a very brief video. You have the sound? So this is the last project I'll be showing you now. So that's the site, and the site actually is, the client stays there, and this is a location, their father of the family had died, and that's the location of the last rites. And actually they came to us because we were doing that other house which you saw earlier, which was built in sandstone, and simply because I was visiting, they said that this is going to be a very small project for you, but I don't know if you'll do it, but would you do it? So, and they came to me with this sketch, like a memorial. So I told them, I said, you will create a memorial, but then what is that memorial going to do? And we looked at the whole vicinity, we studied it in this entire region of 144 villages. There are no community spaces at all. Everybody puts these tents up, they use it, and then it's dismantled the next day. The schools are in this condition. This is a school which is literally 500 meters from the site. And we visited 3 more schools also, which was slightly better than this one, but none of them had a library space. So what we told the client is that why don't you build something for the community? Because if you build a memorial, it's just inclusive. Only your family is going to come here and nobody else will even know about it. Instead of that, build something for the community. So the great thing is that after a month of discussions, they agreed. What happened? Yeah. So the good thing was that the client agreed, and we said, we can't build a school here obviously, but let's build a library that is available to all these schools in the neighborhood which don't have access to any library. And they agreed based on just that the area should not exceed 10,000 because they had a budget in mind. And that was the first sketch, as Pramiti said, it was done on flight, and from there it took off. So that's the plan that we actually started with. That was the first idea, that we build something that is circular around this and create that as the focal point. But then we realized that that is not going to be able to house so many people. So let's open it up towards the north and then extend the arms out further so that there is always going to be some shadow. And then finally make the roof accessible as well, so taper it down. So that's how it came to be. And then because this region has very scarce water supply, we calculated over the last 20 years how much rainfall is the average. Based on that, how much this building needs. And then based on that, we created this water tank, which supplies water throughout the year. And this water is only taken from rainwater harvesting. All the slopes are connected to this. Everything is recycled. And this little project in the middle of a desert with all its green roof and everything is completely self-sufficient, does not require water from anywhere. It has just completed 1 year now. And all of this earth was then also used to create the earth berms on the south, east and the west, sheltering the building completely from heat gain from these sides. So the only large opening is towards the north where you get indirect light. And then we've used stone screens again from the region to further mitigate the heat gain into the building. It's a very simple floor plan. The narrow portion is a small museum which tells the story of the father. And on the right side, where it really opens up, is the library space, with the center becoming an open amphitheater that can be used in multiple ways. So these are cross sections showing how the auditorium is built into the landfill, and the varying heights, which again keep varying all throughout. Again, this building was built during COVID, with 4 hours of video calls every day, with every curvature point marked, and we checking on the drawing and it being video related from there, whether it was correct or not. So that's the building looking out towards the north from the top. It's a complete aerial view. This is the building from the western side. And these scoops which are created within the earth berm allow natural light to come into the museum. Very simple building, but it's really served a very big purpose. The whole built-up area of the building is only 9,000 square feet. That's the museum space. All the flooring is also in the local Kota stone sourced from there. And that's the library space. So the library keeps getting these interesting shadows, and it's a digital library. So it's actually the first digital library in a 40-kilometer radius from the school. So as mentioned earlier, all the earth excavated was used. The water tank takes care of the supply. In addition, there's recycling. So even though there is a grass roof, it is all supplied from within the site, from rainwater harvesting. All the material used is the local material. All the labor is local. We use earthenware pots to reduce the heat gain. With that, the grass roof, so literally there is no heat. Again, here I was in this library in April or May, I think last, and although AC has been provided, it was amazing to see that it's full of children, all studying, and there's no AC on, and there's no fan. And they were all okay, and I was told that they rarely use it because the building in itself is so cool. So this just goes to show how you can take 9,000 square feet but generate 5 times the area in terms of usable space. You have a 27,000 square feet open auditorium, 9,000 square feet usable roof, as well as 9,000 square feet inside. So a lot of visitors on a daily basis in this place. So it's very, very heartening to see how the building is being used. Just a month ago, there were over 1,000 people just on the roof. And every festival, every school function, art camps, studying, everything is done in this for all those 144 villages that surround us. And the 144 villages sound very large in number, but these are small, small villages which are in a close vicinity. So the greatest thing that this building has done by providing spaces for the community is that it has fueled so many more projects which we are now doing pro bono there. And the first one of this has started last month. So this is a girls' school. It will be the first girls' school in the whole area, again within a huge radius. And all of this is designed to be naturally ventilated. There is going to be no air conditioning anywhere. The building is designed to be energy efficient. And for this, I sat with the students, learned what they wanted. You'll be surprised to know that these children who were studying in that kind of school, which is made out of these corrugated sheets, actually told me that we don't need anything. This is fine. I mean, why are you making a new school? I mean, just imagine the innocence. They are happy with what they have. And then when I told them, but you don't have a place to do, for example, like an art space studio, he said, yes, that would be nice. I said, what about a dancing studio? Oh yes, that would be nice. What about cooking? That would be nice. So now the new school is going to have all of that. And then we're also doing a small garden which is in the middle of the village. It's very small. We're doing it all out of the stone that they use. I mean, you'll be shocked to see that there are stone panels available in this region which are 6 feet high, 12 inch wide and 1.5 inch thick at 600 rupees. That's the cost. I mean, it's literally everybody makes their compound walls out of it. The villages make their compound walls out of it. And then this is an interesting project that we're going to be starting in the next 3 months, which is a 200-year-old Shiva temple, which is in this state right now. So you're planning to build all of this community facilities around it, spaces to sit for people to come. So that's the beauty of what this project has done. So it's literally going to change Mokha and the way people experience things there. It's a small movie and that's the end. Because I was just told time is not long. really small building gives us so much satisfaction because we've changed so many people's lives by doing this. That's one aspect, and the other thing is that it's literally us who made the brief. But the client came for something else, landed up with something else, but that's done good to so many people. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sanjay. Just seeing all this, I know why you're winning all the awards. And Bruce Fresh, seeing your projects, absolutely amazing. We have time for 2 quick questions only. So,
उधर घुमा ले
Can we do zero cement, 100% lime, 4 to 5 story buildings?
No, sorry.
Can we make zero cement or 100% lime, 4 to 5 story buildings?
4 to 5 story buildings, how will you do the slabs? That's the only thing.
So if you figure, 200 years back, there are palaces and all which are no
But
cement.
they use stone. You can do it. You can do it. But then you have to use stone slabs, which actually makes it very expensive. It is doable on smaller scale projects. Hands up.
Thank you for the demonstration. I think it was very inspiring and the dedication towards sustainability. My question was, when you're making so many Jagiedar architecture, does a sandstorm and things like that become a challenge?
The sandstorms, actually that breaks the sandstorm. It's a very relevant question because a lot of people have asked this. It literally, these jali screens break the sandstorm. Otherwise, the sand, where we've done these projects in Noka, has the worst sandstorms possible. And I have, it's happened when I've been there. The sand comes and hits your face, and you can't stand for more than 2 seconds. But when you're inside the volume, the sand is all hitting the stone and falling there.
Thank you so much.
Hi Sanjay, I'm an artist, and what has been worrying me is the plastic, which is worrying everybody, but still we don't end up doing anything about it. Any plans?
So we keep trying to do whatever is possible to do, like in this case, I mean, you made a building for the community rather than an inclusive building, which should have been private. So yes, at every step we are trying to push and push. But then it also depends on a lot of other agencies. And in this case, what you're talking about, plastic is a very huge thing. So unless the government takes steps, it's not going to really happen. It will happen on small scale in different parts, and a lot of people are doing it. A lot of people are consciously doing it, but a lot of people's efforts are like literally, it's like a drop compared to what is required.
So a big name like you, if you actually think about it, it will create a movement, I guess.
We're trying to do it everywhere. They're not using plastic. But
Inculcating
yeah,
plastic
but
into
you're
your-
saying to propagate it, we can do that.
Inculcate it into your building structures,
Yes.
because making benches and installations
Hmm.
is not even a drop in the ocean.
True.
So
It is the need.
it is the yeah. Thank you.
So I have a question. This. Hi sir. So my question was, in terms of communal and personal spaces, the sense of luxury and aesthetic can be a little subjective. But how do you incorporate sustainability in a retail context and yet make it look luxurious and very defined?
So your question is, how do you make something which is supposed to be luxurious? No, you want to be sustainable and luxurious at the same time. So that house, the Narsigar house, is a perfect example of that, where it is actually a luxury house. In a sense, it's 35,000 square feet. When I was told the brief, I was like, why would he make something so big? But then that was his requirement, so you can't change that. He said, I have so many visitors, I need this space, I need that space, I need this space. But it's sustainable, because you actually don't need air conditioning, and you've done it with local labor. That house built anywhere else would have cost minimum 2 times, minimum. Because it was done locally with all local materials, it has been done at half the cost of if somebody was to make that house in Delhi, for example, which is not even very far from there. Bombay too is impossible.
Hi sir. So as an architecture student, what challenges do you face when you make a building environment friendly or sustainability building?
So when I was a student, unfortunately they were not talking about sustainability at that time. But I don't think you should face any challenge, because everybody knows the importance, and the building industry is contributing over 30% to the carbon footprint that is being made. So any effort to reduce it is something in the right step. I mean, a step in the right direction. So I don't see why you should have any hurdle if you propagate sustainability.
Hello, sir, yeah. Sir, over here. Hello, sir. I'm a fourth-year student in architecture. So my question was, what are the challenges? Like, what are the challenges of the sandstorm? So now in Okha village, you have many projects. One of them was a community center, and now you got the upcoming projects. So, what are the design challenges and also on-site construction challenges you have to face because of the harsh weather conditions? One was sandstorm and many other, like, I would like to know.
See, basically it is water scarcity, number one. Okay, the excessive heat, number two. Sandstorm is actually like, it comes down the line in terms of importance. So it's the heat and the water that is the first 2 points that you need to tackle. So you can do it, because you just did it. It was like calculate the water, see what is required, build accordingly, and then not just build and dump that mud somewhere, but use it within the same site. So again, there also nothing went out or in of the site.
And also design challenges like you took the curve shape and all. Like, are there any such design challenges you faced because of
It is a design challenge. So that is why we had to do 4-hour video calls on a daily basis for over a period of months, because we didn't trust that. But they were all local labels doing it. It was during COVID time, so it couldn't have been a contract. And we don't believe in taking contractors from one city to another, because that defeats the whole purpose. It has to be local labor. So local labor, obviously, they had actually never done something wrong ever in their lives. And the building, while it was being constructed also, these villagers would stop and look at it and say, "Ye goal kya ban raha hai, goal kya ban raha hai." So it was like that. So that is why we had to do all the video calls, and we actually took them through the whole step. We said, "No, you measure, you show us that you got this thing right," and so we.
So like
It just means more supervision. It means a lot more supervision.
it might be a big task to the local artists because you have to make them show like SI.
Yes, it is. It is.
It was a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just last question. Hello, thank you for the presentation. I'm a digital product designer, so I apologize in advance for lack of knowledge for what I'm about to ask. So I'm sure you must have already solved for it, but I had 3 questions that popped in my mind. One was accessibility, wheelchair accessibility for senior citizens or for anybody who probably couldn't travel in that landscape. Second was security for the girl child. in a large space like that? Because I've done my graduation from Rajasthan, so that's a question that kept coming back in my mind. And third was security in general, because it was a large space and open space. So is there, I'm sure you must have already solved for it, but I just wanted to take in your mind.
So you're talking about the community center, right?
I mean, all your projects were large, right? So,
No.
okay, let's start with community center.
So in the community center case, there is a whole, there are 4 security people there at all times,
Okay.
because it is being visited by over 1,000 people on a daily basis.
Okay.
I mean, complete buses of children come. They come from neighboring villages. They come from Akautal. So there are security people put in place by the client themselves,
Okay.
because they want to ensure that everything is proper. So that part is there. Your next question, the next part was accessibility. It is wheelchair accessible. So there are 2 different slopes that go up to the garden. One is a very shallow one, and one is a slightly steeper one.
And what about the step well?
The building, so that has an elevator that goes till the top. Of course, so the wheelchair people can only access that topmost portion. So they can't go down somewhere in the middle. So that's not possible, because it's too much. It's an 80,000 square feet floor plate. But they can go to the highest point, and the highest platform is accessible.
And what about security in general, given that the spaces are usually very open, right? So while it allows for ventilation, it can also, invite people, unwanted people just invading in spaces.
No, but each one of the places is either an institution or an
Yes.
individual client who's taking care of the security.
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering, somebody can, if it's an open space, they might be able to invade, hence the lack of knowledge.
No, but there is one
Yeah.
dedicated entry point only, so
Okay.
you can't enter from anywhere else.
Thank you so much.